Hey, what's up? I thought of this video because I was talking with a couple people about like their favorite abilities or abilities they find really cool, and then I started ranting about mine, and I thought I might as well like capture it in audio, just kind of make a little video about it. This is just like a little rant while I just have the gameplay in the background. And honestly, this is just like my 5 favorite abilities slash moves that I thought of, and these are just from different animes. These have no listing, but the first one is Blaze Release. So Sasuke uses it and essentially can pull people towards with his Renegon ability. This is what makes it so cool, is since he can pull people towards him, he can then make like spikes out of Amaterasu, which is like already super powerful, and then essentially make like a spiky shield around him. And that alone just seems like entirely like overdone for how strong it needs to be. Like it didn't even need to be the kind of Blaze release it is, but it's so out of the question of like what it needs to be, and that's what makes it so great. And Sasuke has a lot of cool abilities. I like a lot of his stuff, like different abilities that he has, like his teleport, his Shidori, like all the basic stuff is Usano, like, but this is the ability that I saw Sasuke use like once or twice, I think. And each time he does, it's just like so interesting to me. I wish it was used more in the show. But I'm not the writer, but I just enjoyed that. The next one is like Megami's 10 Shadows technique. And honestly, I've only watched the show, and I just want to preface this: I've only watched the show for all these people, so I don't know the manga part of it, and it's to this date that I'm uploading is that's all I know about the show. And some of them I haven't even finished because I've only watched the anime. I haven't read the manga or anything. But from what I've seen on the show, Megami's like 10 Shadows technique is so interesting. There's a scene where he's getting like a domain and he can basically just like have this ink is what it looks like because of how, like the consistency of it, but it's just shadows. But the inconsistency, like he can essentially just transport himself anywhere in his domain, and it's just so interesting. And he almost has like summons that he doesn't need a little summon item for, and I'm like, that's really cool. He just makes a certain hand sign and he can release it. So its hands are like the key to his summons, and I'm like, you have to tame them, which is so much cooler than just having all of them. Because if you had all of them, they would be kind of broken and it'd be a little bit boring. But the fact that he has to like tame them, so he has to be stronger than the ones they have to use, that's just so cool. And the fact that if one dies, it goes into the power of the next ones, that is also really interesting because honestly, like the power could have been really boring. He just gets 10 summons and whatever. But the kind of like specifics of it, that he has to train each one, he has to if one dies, he doesn't lose it, but if one dies, he can't just resummon it. It's like it's put into another thing. That is so cool. And I'm not trying to like go into depth and like trying to explain the whole thing. I'm just trying to like talk about why it's really cool to me, like why I find it so interesting. And I'm hoping that he has a bunch more stronger things. I think I've gotten up to like the elephant out of his summons, which is not a lot, but this is like my favorite my favorite ability or technique from Jujutsu Kaisen, at least. Well, so far it is. And this kind of jumps to a whole nother anime, but it's still with fire. I don't know why. Well, fire is pretty cool. It's not my favorite element, but fire is definitely up there with a pretty interesting one because of how many shows knows it's popular. They can create it to a lot of stuff, and that's like Inka's like Fire Force ability. She's one of the pillars, or rather, I think the fifth. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But I've seen her ability, and that's just so interesting. So it's essentially like she can see further than everyone else, but she's seeing it through scent. It reminds me of Limbo in Naruto. Like Madara Uchiha's ability of like Limbo, only he could see it, but once you get a Renegon, you could see through it. And I thought that was so cool because it was like she was interacting with another like whole dimension, but she was the only one able to notice its like power and all that kind of stuff, and how she can like draw lines to like explode. And I was just like, how much potential this has, because she was a pretty new character. She hasn't gone into too much depth, but the potential for this character and her abilities and what it can expand to is probably why it's so high and how much I enjoy it. Because I've only seen 2 seasons of Fire Force, but if she's in here more and expanded upon, she might even be higher in my personal list of how much I enjoy. But she's awesome. I really like her abilities, and they're so good offensive and defensive. And another Fire Force character, this is just because I've watched Fire Force recently and it's just still fresh in my head a little bit, is Joker's cards. Now, they're not like he has to pull a certain card to do a certain attack, but rather the card itself is like a weapon, and the card on itself is super, super weak. Like, if you've seen in the show, I don't know if you guys have it or not, but he uses it to defend against a sword, and the fact alone that he's using a card between his fingers to fight a sword is just so interesting. And his character kind of makes his powers cooler, because if he just had a deck of cards, it would be okay, and it wouldn't really be that special, but the character makes it way cooler. And the cards is just like a super interesting feel to me. I have a couple decks of cards that I really like using and just playing around with, like just using them in any kind of way, like cardistry or just tricks. But his card like whole theme, and that he's a Joker and he has an ace up his sleeve, all that kind of stuff, makes his cards fit so much well, or so much better, that it just fits so well, and I just enjoy watching him on screen, especially because of his like abilities and stuff like that. That it just makes his character in general more enjoyable because of his cool powers. And the final one is not, I don't know if it's an ability or if it's just a gift, but Aaron's Titan controlling ability. Now, this may change if I find something cooler in Attack on Titan. I'm currently at Season 4, like Episode 3 or 4. Like, I have not gone far into Season 4, but I'm making this video before I finish it because I just don't really want to get through it and just, like, postpone this video, because I thought of this and I wanted to make it. But how he unlocks it was really interesting, and that made it even better, how he was, like, fighting that certain Titan. If you haven't seen the show, I don't want to ruin it, but that certain Titan had, like, some meaning. And it was just so good. Watching the Titan behind him just charge at the Titan. He was, like, essentially inspiring the other Titans to fight the, like, blonde one. And that alone was just, like, super cool to me, because not often do, like, abilities not play with themselves. These other 4 that I chose all are about themselves, but having the ability to control something else is so, so, so cool to me. And mainly that's why I enjoy using, or not enjoy using, but enjoy watching these shows, because all these abilities that I chose have their own way of being super interesting. Like the Blaze release is super cool because it works well with other abilities, and it's super like over the top and unneeded for what it's like trying to do. The 10 Shadows is super interesting because of the aspects around it, makes it so much better, because it's a basic ability, just being like, oh, you can summon stuff without having to summon. Like, okay. The fire, like, her little, like, smell into another dimension, sees lines of heat paths. That's so cool and could be expanded upon. That's mainly why she's here. Joker's Fire Force, and how it, like, works with his character, with his cards, and how strong they are, and how it, like, it just fits properly. And Aaron's, like, Titan controlling ability, and how it just, like, fits with that theme, and the whole show just has this ability, makes it that much better to watch. And these abilities are partly because of the show makes them that much better, but these are also just really cool. Like, if you were to bring them to real life, that would be so interesting. Like, you could see, oh, it would just be cool to see these kinds of things in other shows or things like it. Like, let's say the blaze release that Sasuke uses, where he can essentially make like a little field around him and all spiky because of his like blaze release that are Amaterasu flames, and can just control them into becoming such a like a strong defensive like blockade. That alone would be so cool if it was in Fire Force, because Fire Force is all about fire, and that could be a possibility. Like, they could make their own like little cage of spikes around themselves. And honestly, that's why I enjoy a lot of this these abilities, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. But yeah, if you guys want me to go in depth with it, let me know. I just thought I'd briefly touch on 5 abilities that I really enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed. You guys like any other videos, check them out.